This video has spoilers for both the original ending and final draft ending of Alan Wake 2. The final draft is the New Game Plus mode, which was patched in after release, and the final draft ending is absolutely crucial to this game. I'm going to show you the final draft ending, so you will be able to follow this video if you've only played the game once. The Alan Wake games are stories about the art of storytelling. They establish the rule that Alan's writing can only change reality if he plays fair by storytelling conventions, if what he writes is resonant and rings true. Toward the end of Alan Wake 2, Saga and Alan discuss this quite openly.
So the ending has to be earned.
That's the only way to make it stick.
To save Saga's daughter's life, Alan's writing has to fit the story. There has to be setup and payoff.
The elements of the ending need to come from the story's pre-existing parts.
The tone has to be consistent. There has to be an awareness of the genres they're in.
The ending has to fit the genre if it's going to work.
There can be MacGuffins like the clicker, and the heroes can potentially save the ones they love if the story makes room for heroes.
If there is a hero, they will ultimately pay a heavy price.
But the events of the plot can't be cheap, and the emotions can't be contrived or unearned.
The more people we save, the greater the cost, and the hero must pay the price.
One of the heroes. The scales always need to balance.
We're in this together.
Then let's bring it home.
Alan?
Saga, I finished it. The ending we talked about.
In the original ending of the game, Alan writes a conclusion to the story in which he accepts that the Dark Presence is simply an empty and angry part of himself, a nihilistic part which led his wife to suicide and is lost without her.
Darkness not as a monster, but as emptiness. The hero turns to look inside, is destroyed by what he sees, and is redeemed. Saga said we're both heroes. I'll pay that price.
This is the same part of himself that selfishly wrote the death of Saga's daughter Logan into his story.
I'm so sorry. This whole thing is a fucking mess.
I agree.
Since Alan is still one of the heroes of the story, he is redeemed when he understands this nasty side of himself and accepts that he must die for the pain that he has caused. This ending is Alan's best attempt at saving Logan's life, because it satisfies all the necessary criteria. It makes sense within the world of the Alan Wake story, and it would make sense to an audience like us from a narrative perspective. Alan writes himself into a tragic hero role, a character who is strong enough to face up to his flaws and make sacrifices for others. Saga's contribution is that she figures out that the ending will be better if she's the one to kill Alan.
I have to be the one to do it.
Because Alan exploited her and her family in his story.
Another white asshole deciding what I get to do, how I get to do it. He took my daughter from me.
To be clear, I don't think she acts like she really wants revenge. She's just pragmatic about what details will contribute to a satisfying story, what will be most likely to save her daughter.
This is our ending. You aren't the only one deciding these things anymore.
You're right. I can't do this alone.
Saga shoots Alan with a bullet of light provided to the story by Alan's wife Alice. Alice is a rogue agent within the story. She's not controlled by Alan's writing, so the bullet of light is a wild card that Alan doesn't know about. He's just expecting to be shot and die.
We are here to kill the monster. I pray nothing comes after this. Nothing will sleep. This is how we win.
The bullet of light is a hilariously blunt metaphor for enlightenment, specifically the enlightenment of loving someone and being loved in return. It takes all three of these characters' contributions to reach this ending. The bullet of light is a bullet and not a bracelet or something nice, because Alan's enlightenment only comes through facing up to himself, being loved, and paying for his sins all at the same moment. But Alan doesn't know the bullet is special. He just hopes death allows him to rest.
I pray nothing comes after this. Nothing will sleep.
As he is shot, he wonders,
Is it too easy?
He worries that their ending isn't good enough to escape the dark place, or the dark presence, or his own emptiness. It's all the same thing. He begins to fear that he's caught in a loop.
What if this is still the dark place, another dream to wake up from, always coming back to the beginning?
That he'll never escape this layer of hell, that he's doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over. But in a post-credits scene, we learn that Alice is alive.
This part is just for you.
She faked her death to help Alan see the darkness within himself, and realize that Mr. Scratch is just his own nastiness.
I had to mislead you, so that I could get you to where you needed to be. The only way out of your loop is destruction or ascension, and we've covered the destruction part many times over. And we're getting to the ascension bit by bit.
Alan wakes up. He's not dead. He's back at the beginning of the story, but he has been enlightened by Alice's contribution to the story.
It's not a loop. It's a spiral.
He now knows he's not trapped forever. He's making progress. This is a different layer of hell, and he's dragging his way out. Alice says it will be hard, but when Alan is fully enlightened, when he knows himself completely, he will be able to escape the spiral.
You'll still need to go through the loop. But I will keep showing you the images you need to see. The light you need to see. Until you're ready.
Meanwhile, Saga calls her daughter to see if the ending worked, if it was true and balanced enough, if it wasn't too easy, if Alan's sacrifice was payment enough for her daughter's life. The dial tone rings.
Is it over?
And rings.
Anderson.
And the game cuts to black as it continues to ring. We don't find out if Logan is alive, because the game at release didn't have the answer to that question. The exciting and frustrating thing about writing is that an author can't know if their work is resonant before it has an audience. They can do their best to be internally consistent, meaning they follow the rules they've created within their own story, and they can write a well-constructed narrative, meaning they are conscious of concerns like genre conventions and rules of storytelling like setup and payoff. But neither of those qualities guarantees that a story will be liked. A well-built and well-told story can be hated. It could be too bland, it could be too simple, or challenging, or complicated for its intended audience. It could be too emotionally confronting, or ironic, or earnest. It could conflict with any number of desires brought to the table by the audience. And the author doesn't know about any of that before they release their story to the world. Metatextually, this is why the original ending doesn't answer the question of whether Logan picked up Saga's phone call. Saga and Alan's goal was the same as Remedy's goal as a narrative-focused game developer. The goal was to write an ending which feels true, an ending that does satisfy narrative conventions, but is also resonant. And that can only be decided when the story reaches an audience, us. A developer can't know what we think before they release their game, so Remedy didn't know whether Logan should be saved and pick up the phone or not. If we'd all hated the ending and thought it was cheap or something, then the heroes would have failed to create a resonant story, and so a happy ending wouldn't have been earned. But if you didn't notice, this game, people kind of like it. It's pretty good. Saga and Alan and Remedy got their ending right. The story did ring true, because when we, the audience, received it, we loved it. The ending of the Final Draft New Game Plus mode plays out the same way as the original ending up to the point where Saga makes the phone call. But before Alan dies, he has a different voiceover.
We have met here before. Time loops in the dark place.
He explains that in the original ending, the Bullet of Light did separate him from the dark presence, it did banish his demons, but he wasn't truly ready to let go of his emptiness and grief and ascend.
When the Bullet of Light blew the darkness out of the crater of my skull, the dark presence was born from the remains, feeding on the horror around it to grow. It found me writing, it tapped into me. Influenced me. I was lost in my work. The link was severed when I finished Return, but the dark presence was hungry for more. And I was missing the small part of myself that it had been born from. Alice.
Remember, back then in the first ending, before Alan realized
It's not a loop. It's a spiral.
he doubted himself and the ending as he died.
Is it too easy?
He convinced himself he was trapped in a loop with no escape.
What if this is still the dark place? Another dream to wake up from, always coming back to the beginning.
So the dark presence came right back and fed off of his insecurity. Alan ended up back where he started to continue wrestling with himself.
Back to the beginning, with the memory of the past loop already fading fast. But while it lingers, I know there's hope. We're not doomed to repeat our failures in an eternal loop. This is a spiral.
This time, in the final draft ending, when Alan chooses to make the heroic sacrifice, he then remembers this has happened before.
I see it clearly now. This part at least. Okay. We have met here before.
He remembers that Alice is alive, and that she's helping him, and that he is loved.
Alice, love is strange. Even apart, we're still together in our memories. We put each other through hell to set us free. Again and again. Different versions of us. Alice helped me get there. Where I needed to be. It has taken so long.
The bullet of light is Alice. It's her overlap. It's her love, which fills the empty part of Alan. It's her love that pushes the dark presence away.
It has taken so long. The process to change reality is so delicate, to be true in just the right way and still find a way past our flaws. So many drafts, so many photographs, so many lives lived outside of time, an eternity apart on this journey to finally arrive here.
After Alan dies again, Saga makes her phone call again, and the phone rings again.
Is it over? Anderson?
And the scene cuts to black again. But this time...
Logan? Logan! Are you alright?
I had a terrible nightmare. Can you come home, Mom?
Oh, baby. It's over now. You're alright. I'm here. I'm on my way home. I love you. She's alright.
The ending worked. Scratch is gone.
At last.
Thank you, my love. And so I return. With me I bear the torch of knowledge, the light, the miracle illuminated, the master of two worlds. No, the master of many worlds.
Saga's daughter is saved, and Alan wakes from death again, but this time without looping. He has escaped the spiral. The thing about a heroic sacrifice is that the hero doesn't have to stay dead for the story to be satisfying. What matters is that they die to save others. That sacrifice is what makes them a hero, not actually being dead. So Alan earns resurrection through the power of his self-sacrifice. Saga and Alan's goal was to escape the Dark Place's influence on their lives. Alan originally thought that the best he could hope for was the escape of death.
I pray nothing comes after this, nothing but sleep.
But because of his bravery, and because he accepts help from Saga and Alice, Alan achieves ascension, the enlightenment and mastery of self he was spiraling towards.
With me, I bear the torch of knowledge, the light, the miracle illuminated,
He quotes directly from The Hero with a Thousand Faces.
the master of two worlds.
Alan himself acknowledges he has completed his hero's journey and has achieved mastery of the magic and the miracle of resonant storytelling. As Alan says,
The ending worked.
it was true in just the right way. Because the original ending resonated with us, the audience, when the game released, now Alan and Saga have earned a happy ending. This is why the final draft ending had to be patched in after release. Metatextually, it serves as Remedy's response to our reception of the game. Logan can pick up Saga's phone call now. There can be a happy ending now because the story and the original ending successfully resonated with the audience when it reached us. Remedy achieved the miracle. Let's be clear here, this final draft ending cutscene was in the PC game files at launch. It was data mined before the New Game Plus patch came out. If Remedy had thought this was the right ending for the story at release, this would have been the original ending. They didn't go back and film it later. It was always ready to go when Remedy felt it was appropriate. This is why Remedy were actually justified in plugging this New Game Plus patch on stage at the Game Awards during their acceptance speech.
When more than 100 people believe in the same vision and build something out of it, we can make miracles, we can make art, and we can be more than the sum of our parts. Our world today could use a bit more of that.
That's a nice one. One other thing, next Monday, December 11th, New Game Plus, the final draft is going to be coming out. New story content, so yeah, go play it, thanks.
The recognition this game received was the justification for adding the New Game Plus happy ending. If the game's story had been received poorly, Remedy would have failed to justify adding this happy ending. It's actually entirely appropriate for Remedy to tell the world they're patching in this specific content while they are receiving recognition for their achievements, because this content is a reaction to the positive reception of the game. The original ending of Alan Wake 2 left the door open for basically anything, including more stories about Alan trying to escape the Dark Place. But the story of Alan Wake is complete with the final draft ending. Alan has transcended the Dark Place. He has become the master of this weird magic power which makes his writing affect reality. There are plenty of storytelling possibilities with a character like Alan who has finished the hero's journey, but from my perspective, this story is complete without an Alan Wake 3. But whatever Remedy does next, I'll be there, day one. I absolutely love Alan Wake 2. Its exploration of the bounds of metaphor is the best in a high-budget video game since the original Silent Hill trilogy. And it also does things I've never seen done before in a video game. It's the kind of creative work that inspires me to make things. It's an incredible juggling act of text, metatext, and textbook. But it's also a genuine, heartfelt, unironic, and earnest story, and for me, right now, there's nothing more resonant than that.